It's very funny, but we say that we're going to continue doing a job all our time and we're going to take breaks where we have to define how long. So I can say the same thing and invert it and say, hey, how long do you plan on working? Right? Like before you take your next break. And then you realize, oh, it takes a little longer. And now the anxiety is starting to build up. And now 11 months have gone by. And you're like, oh shit, I don't have anything. Like there's this virus in the air that only talks about AI and productivity and equity in Bangalore. Right? There's just like Delhi has the air pollution that just sits heavy on this. I think Bangalore does that too in some ways. So sometimes you will take breaks. Sometimes life will force you to take.
Thank you so much for taking the time. Really appreciate it. Wanted to drill down on career breaks. I feel like to set the context maybe a little bit, maybe we can motivate the subject by why should somebody take a career break in the first place. The context would be in the Indian context. Like I feel like when there are gaps in the resume, people feel really scared.
Yeah.
So that is one aspect, right? And I feel also generally people are just trying to get to their next gig as fast as possible. They are on a career trajectory and they're on one job and they're suddenly looking for another job. They don't want to slow down, pace themselves. There is no aspect of that. So in that context, what is the need and when should somebody start maybe even thinking about a career break and why?
What's the need? Not everybody has a need. Some people do. A person like me does. Why is there a need? I think there are two bits to it. I think for a person like me, when I'm in it, I'm completely in it. When I'm at work. So having a break and having a long enough break allows me to really, one is dissociate from the day-to-day runnings of what a job has to offer. And then the other thing it does is it allows me to reframe. So if your life is completely about careers, then maybe taking a break does not help. And then it obviously makes a lot more sense that what people do, right? Like if you're in a job, then you kind of go ahead and use that as a lever to kind of get your next gig. In that case, yes, probably it doesn't make sense. But for me, allowing, again, non-linear careers, that's one more kind of undertone here, right? So with that, it helps you to kind of zoom out, take a break, look at how your career has been, where do you want to go next, what's out there, and then kind of zoom back in. It also allows me, my friends call it the European way of careers in some ways, is that I tend to work a couple of years, then take a short break, 6 months, 7 months, and then come back. Come back with a renewed perspective, come back with a lot of reframing and a lot of taste for what has been happening around. And I kind of bring that in my work as well. So it helps my role also. So I think that's how I look at it.
In terms of like when you said that it may not be, career breaks may not be helpful for people who are, their life is, where their objective is to have like a career oriented like life.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure if I agree with that. I mean, I think there are many people who do end up like taking breaks, right? Like, and either they're coming off like like a stint at a company and then they just want to, they'll take 6 months, a year. At least I think the most famous example I can think of is Sam. I think Sam Altman took like a year break, I think, before getting the YC gig. After his startup, he took a year gigs and, read a lot of things and then ended up running YC and then obviously OpenAI right now. Is that a fair perspective? Like, it may be helpful for even people who are into career as a life as well.
Yeah, but here's the thing, right? Like, so who's our audience? Who's listening to this, right? Very, very important. Like and giving an example of Sam, great, but one very small example, right? So there are two type of folks, I would say. Folks for whom career means something a lot more. For them, yes, taking a break. Actually, I am a proponent of taking breaks. I truly believe that taking breaks allows you to reframe and look at and be actually better off in your career than, not having had a break. But there are folks for whom it doesn't make sense. Like I know friends who are super anxious without having that anchor of a job. For them, they take bad and poor decisions once they need to go back. They don't have that sort of patience that you need to hear a zillion no's and wait for what you have in mind. They don't have that rigor to kind of articulate their thoughts on paper and say, hey, this is what I'm going to continue to think even when I'm in a corner, even if I'm cornered, I'm going to continue to think like that. And I think that's, excuse me, I think that's really important to kind of differentiate and know thyself, right? Know that, hey, this is who I am. And for me, having a break is empowering versus I think it may not be. I highly recommend that you do take one. But then, yeah, also one of, and also we tend to look at successful examples, right? So we look at those. We don't talk about a lot of people who are like, hey man, I took a break, then I got screwed over. The HR was like, ta 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 ta, ta, and I didn't know what to say, right? And the reality is that everybody ends up taking breaks, right? For taking care of your parents, for weddings, for so many things. But we kind of try to pack everything into like these 10-15 days versus I'm like, hey, I want to get married. I want to take 2 months break because I want to plan it out and I want to do everything myself. And it's a really big moment. Or I'm having kids. Or I'm taking care of maybe a 14-year-old lab that I have at home. And it matters to people. So we often think that, at least in the Indian context, I truly believe, by the way, it's changing. I really think it's changing. I can see that.
I mean, people are more open to taking breaks.
Oh, yeah, people are open to it. And also, I would say folks are open to not judging people that, oh, you have taken a break, so I'm not going to look at you. And again, so much context. Startups are a lot more chiller than companies, and, MNCs are, traditional companies are by nature traditional. So you will find different worlds. I truly believe that, there's not one world we live in. There are these layers like an onion, and each different layer has a different context to world, like life itself. So the kind of companies you subscribe to, in some sense, give you this framework. And the framework I come from is #Bangalore, #startups, early stage startups at that as well, sometimes like mid stage. So that context allows me to say this with a lot more sort of gravitas versus if I was working in traditional companies.
So let's say the listener is also, let's say, in the same profile, not very career oriented, but also wants to whatever their next gig is, want to really take a step back, weigh all the options, even quote unquote discover thyself during that break, maybe reflect on the experiences that they had in the last job, right? And see what are the pathways that they can probably figure out in the next gig that they're looking for. If that is the profile, then at least in your case, what are the kind of checklists that you go through mentally? Like, I mean, before you take that jump of like telling yourself, right? Maybe the next, and here another question will come to eventually is like, what is the duration as well, right? When you're taking, do you have something in mind, things like that? But assuming that you have made that jump, are there checklists that you look for that now it's the time to like, take a step back and then maybe reevaluate things like that?
Checklist and duration. So checklist, yes, a mental checklist, a Google. I truly believe everything can be put down in sheets in some ways, right? So a sheet really works. What do you do? What do you put down, right? I look at basics. How much a runway essentially, right? How many months can you comfortably kind of stay out of a job without stress? So that by default will help you figure out a run, like, when do you want to, how long you can take a break for. When I was early on in my career, I did have one. Now I'm in a space where I have passive income, so I can reduce substantially my lifestyle to create infinite time sort of, I don't need to go back sort of thing, right? So I have that ability to do that. It comes at a cost, by the way. There are a lot of things at stake here. Lifestyle, family, having a life partner, having kids, not having them. All of those things are at play. But let's assume in a stable, neutral case scenario, let's assume you have, the number one thing is how much money do you have in the bank? How much do you spend? And also what are some major expenses? I know a dear friend who is about to quit right now, and he has paid for his life insurance for his mom and dad and himself and his wife for the next 3 years, right? You can do that now. So life insurance, you can pay 1 year, but HDFC and a bunch of banks have the option of paying that for multiple years upfront. They give you a discount as well. He's like, boss, I want to do it right now. I don't need to worry about, I know I can save that money in the bank and plan for it, but might as well pay it upfront because next 3 years I'm free, right? He's figured out, hey, I had a home loan. My wife is working. Okay, she can take care of and start taking responsibility for the loan. We kind of figured these bits out. So it really helps. Next thing is, I would say, why are you taking a break allows you to really define how long you're taking it. For example, if you're taking it for some physical restoration, talk to a physio. They will tell you, boss, you need 9-10 months to fix your lower back because you've been sitting on these chairs for the last 10-14 years, and now your lower back is locked up, and it's not going to be a 3 week, or a 2 month approach. So you're like, okay, I'm going to give that. Maybe you're passionate about something outside of work and you want to put some time into skilling up. And if you're doing that, then that you kind of figure that out, that, hey, I want to take so much time. Maybe it's travel. And I love to travel. And I figured out that my constraint for travel is how long can you get a visa for?
Okay.
So if I get a visa for 3 months, like 90 days, then I'm going to be there for 90 days. I don't come back before 90 days. That's how I approach it, right? It's a weird way to approach it, but my constraint is that. So kind of writing down that, hey, this is what I want to do. This is the reason why I'm taking a break. And this is going to take so much time. So overall, I need this kind of space in my life. Also, you could do something which is just like, hey, you think this is the right time for a break for the right reasons. You just take one.
Yeah, that's what I was coming to, in the sense that because you initiated with that, like you should have like, what is the reason somebody's taking a break, right? Like, is there a case where one is like, people may not be happy with their jobs, right? Could that be a reason? I mean, I don't know. Personal case, I think, I don't know.
Yeah. So I'll tell you how I look at it. It's a little contrarian. Yes, if your job is toxic and it's really, really making life uneasy for you, and you think taking a break will allow you to step away from it and look at it differently, please take one. Happiness is an emotion. Happiness is also fleeting emotion. So if a job is just not like, I think there has to be more depth to it than just my job is not making me happy. And a lot of times it's not the job, frankly. Job is true. It's a fact. Maybe it's a manifestation, but there's a lot of things underplaying in your life overall to kind of create that space. So I think a lot of kind of digging deep there to figure out that, oh, if I have a life and I just remove this job, this particular job, and I just move it out, is my life all right? A lot of time you'll think that, oh, my job dictates it, but the minute you remove it, something else. So I would say don't lean too much on emotion, and which is also a fleeting emotion, to make a decision here. People do that, that's fine. You should do that to some extent, because emotions are also telling of circumstances so much more. Like there's a lot of data packed into that emotion being born, but also knowing that it's an emotion. So I think it's like middle path of sorts, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And in terms of like, is there any heuristics on, you have, let's say a person has started working, they have 4 years of experience or maybe 8 years of experience, I don't know, 20 years of experience. Is there any timeline on that? Like, I mean, maybe after your first 5 years or after a decade, maybe, you take a step back. Are there any transition periods in your life that kind of help when you take marriage is obviously, having kids is probably one, but beyond that, I'm not too sure if I can think of.
There are so many reasons. So one is, it gets easier the later you are in your career. The later you are, it gets easier to take one.
Why so?
I think you're in a stable place in life, right? Overall, you are a little more, you've seen a little bit of life, so you also know you have some more reasons to take one. You also financially a little more stable, I would say. So,
hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. Oh, yeah. If you've been out there doing it right for the, if 8 years and in the last 8 years. And then I think when you come back, you can still bring back a lot more, right? Like if you have got a 3-year career and you've taken a 2-year break, yeah, it gets more difficult. But versus if you have a 14-year career and you've taken a 2-year break, right? It gets a little more easier when you come back. It gets, I think, the bunch of places there. Money would be definitely one of them. The other is, I think, the way the world perceives you is a little more kinder.
Also, I think you've built like a credibility when you take it at a later stage in your career. If you've been working, let's say, for 15 years or 2 decades, I think you've built up decent credibility in like multiple organizations. Yeah. And then when you say you're taking it easy, people are like, he was pretty skilled when he...
Yeah. It's just one of the reasons.
Yeah. Like, in terms of work X, and is there a formula of, so many years of work X, probably, 6 months of break?
Not really. And I also don't want to say one, right? Because it becomes, the minute I say it and it goes out on the internet and becomes a thing, right? Versus what I'm saying to people is, hey, if you think you need one, take some time out, journal consistently for a few weeks, figure out what your reasons are. Are they compelling? Are they consistent? Consistency is important. And also figure out if you are financially, mentally in a place. Do you have a support structure? I'll give you an example. You're isolated, you are not well networked, and you realize that, hey, in my career, it's important for me to be well networked. Maybe take 6 months out to just lubricate your networks a little, go out there for conferences, a lot of those which job gives you access to, which you wouldn't have access to the minute you quit, right? So do that. And then you can say that, hey, okay, now I think I'm helping my future self. I'm enabling this for the right reasons and making sure that when I come back, it's going to be a little easier for me. Do it after 2 years, do it after. And also, I think there is some sort of math which I kind of hinted at is the earlier you're on, the kind of shorter this break essentially can be or is, then the longitude of career you have, you 14 years, 20 years, then yeah, you can take a slightly longer break. Also having reasons. You don't know, like you don't sometimes define when a loved one or somebody you care for needs you in life. And you need to. You don't know when you have your own medical reasons. I know somebody who I recently got to know, she lost her hearing one day in a conference room. Just lost her hearing, just like this. And got to know that many people like Mozart and I think Shakespeare also had the same sort of thing. Don't quote me on it, I'm not a doctor. But this is, yeah, but very interesting, right? Ended up taking a break, got surgery done mid of the year. Like, I think had to invest about 1.5 years in that. Right. So things can happen to you. So sometimes you will take breaks. Sometimes life will force you to take one.
I mean, if I'm traveling to office and if I meet with an accident, I mean, 6 months is on a break. If I'm alive, 6 months is gone. Yeah.
So all of those, I think the world is more kinder than we give it credit for. Not always, but I think in my case, I've seen it to be. So I would love to believe in that and, go with that frame of mind.
And when assuming, like, can you plan for the time at least? Like, in terms of 3 months, 6 months, can you plan for that? And is there, even when you're planning for that time, right? Let's say you've made up, let's say you have some clarity of what you want to do with the break that you're planning to take. And let's assume that, let's take my example, right? Let's say I'm into, I don't know, art maybe. And then I decide, I'm going to spend 6 months exploring art, etc. And by the end of 5th month, I realize, nothing's panned out. Or, the break wasn't what I thought it to be. So how do you how do you reevaluate, or how do you kind of judge the time duration that you've kind of put for yourself? Can you plan that out?
There's a couple of frameworks I have. One is how much time you think you want maybe to exit. See how that feels to you. Just do that. I want to take 3 months break. Okay, take 6 months. I want to take a year break. What if it ends up being a 2-year break? How do you feel about that? So you do that. Number one.
Sorry, but why so? Like, why? What is the reasoning there?
I think the context is that while you're taking one, might as well take it properly. That's one. The other thing, how I'm looking at it is that often it takes longer to get a good role back. So you say, hey, I want to be back at a job. So you kind of, do this math and okay, so I'm taking a year break. So maybe when I'll take a 9-month break and then I'll think kind of quasi come back, open my laptop, clean up my CV and I'll start applying. And then you realize, oh, it takes a little longer. And now the anxiety is starting to build up. And now 11 months have gone by. And you're like, oh shit, I don't have anything. And then you're like, the next best thing that you get, you also had planned for 1 year. So you had money for 1 year. And now that's running out. And you're like, oh, I think I should just take this. And that may not be the right thing for you, but you end up taking it. And so you're worse off in some sense.
So you're buying yourself time in a sense, not buying yourself, but you're just giving you that leeway.
Yeah. Like ease out. Another framework is if you know yourself a little better, like if you're in a highly stressed out space, right? And I'm going to ask you personally, right? And then I remove you from a stressed out space completely. Are you going to be completely back to normal tomorrow?
I think there's going to be some transition period maybe from that stressed. Probably I'll miss that stress for some days. I don't know, in a weird way. In a weird way,
exactly,
right?
Yeah. And then it's very funny, but either it'll be a day you get up and you'll feel like, oh my God, it's just lifted. This weight off my shoulders has been lifted. Or it's going to be this very subtle thing that one day you get up and like, oh, the last few days have been a little light. I think I'm, so that's if you know yourself that, oh, maybe it takes me a month, maybe it takes me 3 months, important. You spoke about that example of art, that you want to pick up art. Do you have a coach? Do you have a guide? Do you have a mentor? Do you have somebody? Do you have a reason of what you're trying to pick up on? Talk to them. Hey, given your skills level, like for me, art skills level, at least like painting and stuff is rudimentary. So I think you will take about a year to pick something up. So with age and everything, so they give you a guidance of sorts that, hey, this is where you will be and this is how long it's going to take. So you can kind of lean on their expertise there. For example, art, but improv, I'm not really good at. And I think maybe if I take a 3-month break, I think I can kick somebody's ass in improv. I can maybe end up, and I'm fairly confident about it, right? And I have also mentors and coaches who can tell me that. So it really depends on like what you're picking up. So asking external friends and to anchor you into time. And there is the other way, which is like if you are in a space that you're like, hey, I just want to take one. So for example, people don't look at jobs the same way, right? They don't say, I'm going to do this job only for 5 years. I'm only going to do this for 2 years. Like, it's very funny, but we say that we're going to continue doing a job all our time and we're going to take, breaks where we have to define how long. So I can say the same thing and invert it and say, hey, how long do you plan on working? Right? Like before you take your next break.
Till I get like the next opportunity. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah. Something like that.
But it's so open, right?
Yeah.
So why can't I put that same frame into jobs? Only constraint is money.
Money, yeah.
Right? Practically, that's the only constraint. But the other constraint is, I don't know what to do. I'm just bored out of life. I really want to get back to work. Right? These are the only framework and constraints around it. Else you're like, hey, I also feel like jobs are an anomaly, right? Like, and with AI coming in, also the first time I said AI, I will count how many times I say that. So it's going to be like jobs are going to really morph and our culture and a lot of things are going to change. And I'm really excited to see how that happens. Subtly, that's happening as well. But that's going to change our definition of work. Yeah. So,
on the assuming, so let's take an example where somebody has the resources to do this and also has a framework, right? They have the resources. They have, let's say, a runway of 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. But there is this guilt that if you take this break, either either people may not perceive it in the right way, or there might be this fear that what am I going to do? Am I running away from my responsibilities and things like that? Is there any approach on like how you can reduce that guilt maybe, or is there a validity for that guilt, and how do you kind of play if you feel that way?
I love the question, validity for guilt. I think people are born and they die with it, man. So there's no validity unless you kind of play with it, right? This is guilt. You have been gifted. The world has gifted. Some of it has been manufactured, and you have brought your own sort of quantum of guilt here. It's for yours to solve, right? So there is no validity to it until you work on it and dissolve it. As simple as that, right? So that's how I would look at the validity to it. The other thing is, yes, there's a lot of, it happens, right? What I would do is go read about a few failed authors who kind of made it midlife. There's a bunch of them. I'll kind of give you names and you can add it in the list.
In the description, yeah.
Yeah. But it's lovely to see their lives, right? They had gone to World War One and World War Two, and then they ended up coming back and started writing and wanted to become a writer, and didn't have anything going for them for the longest till they were kind of midlife, kind of being discovered. And midlife of now, this era. So life expectancy was very different back then. So it's not even midlife back then. And they made something of it, right? So a lot of, and I'm saying this about authors because again, like I've kind of read a lot of those biographies, and you'll see that as a trend happening that they didn't have a lot going for them. Really good writing, but not discovered. And suddenly somebody discovers them, or suddenly they get an award, or suddenly they're invited to be a part of a college or lead some sort of writing workshops. And, they're discovered, and slowly their life really turns around. And why I'm trying to kind of give you that framework is that would be a good way to look at it, right? That you don't really start off with a plan essentially when it comes to it, and hopefully you kind of find one.
Inshallah.
Yes, yeah.
When you spoke about the writing example, right? I was just thinking like how sabbaticals are kind of a thing in academia, and I think it's also encouraged for teachers to kind of take a year off or 2 years off, I think, as a sabbatical, and then come back, either do some research, explore some new areas, and then you come back and then publish some papers. Maybe are there professions where it is more suited for? I feel like, correct me if my assumption is correct here. No, I don't know. Maybe for creative professions, maybe some kind of exploration might help. Is there a profession constraint here, or does it help in certain professions whereas it may not in different professions? Is there something like that?
So I think some professions is great idea to do that. Well, actually, let's break it down, right?
Yeah.
So professions which have high stress, take breaks. I'll give you example. Like my cousin is a cop in New Zealand, and I think he works 3 or 4 days in a week. He's compulsorily given 3 days off work, even though you weekly off is a day or 2 days usually, but he's given one, and midweek he'll be told that okay, now it's a week, it's a day off for you, be home. Because his job is, when he started off, I don't know what he does now as a cop. I think he doesn't do that earlier, but earlier he was taking care of those 911 calls. So very high stress, right? Firstly, you can't do anything. You're incapable of doing something. You're supposed to have presence of mind and coordinate behind. Plus, you're listening. Imagine like you're listening to really gruesome stuff happening, right? People don't call 911 for fun. I mean, some kids do, but most people do it when they're really stressed out. And so there is a lot of stress, emotions, and you can hear maybe background stuff happening, right? This is a very peaceful country like New Zealand, frankly, right? So, but even there, right? So he's taking breaks, mini breaks, and then you have larger breaks. So he gets a lot of longer breaks as well. So careers define that. The other example would be that there are some roles where you would not want to take one. I'll give you examples there. Sports, right? Sports careers. Sports careers are anyway very short because, when you're young is when you have reaction times and your body can kind of take a lot of it. So you can't really afford to take breaks. And people who have taken breaks, usually if not, like have really been left behind. It's really hard to catch up. And the few who have are legendary folks, right? Like, they are folks who you want to read those stories up.
I think Michael Jordan took like a 2-year break or 2-year break to, not a break. I mean, he went to baseball. I think he played baseball at the prime of his career.
That's not a break. That's the thing.
That's not a break,
I don't call it a break.
Okay.
Because so that's the difference between a break and we can actually discuss what a break and a non-break is. Actually, that's a really good question, frankly. But because he's still applying himself, all the skills from basketball are transferable. Reaction times, how to play, how to cue in on and read your competitors and the person right in front of you. All of those are transferables. So and there's a physicality to it. There's a mental state to it, which is still like you got to be in the zone. So all of those are true. So he's not really taking a break. It's actually fun that you do that because when you come back to your sports, you kind of look at it differently. Those are great. I would
Complementary
side quests, if you want to call them, or complementary things or something like that. But they're not really breaks. I'm talking about a break where you're like, oof, I'm not going to do this. And you come back and you pick up a rifle again. If you're into rifle shooting and you're like, oh my God, I'm off. I would give you an example is surgeons, doctors. If you've been off it for a while, sometimes it helps. Take a long enough break and you're like, oh God, I don't think I can go back to surgery. I think I need to be an assistant surgeon now and like kind of just pick up on it. And maybe I need to go back to practice a little. So there are like sort of spaces where you wouldn't want to take one. More often than not, I would say err in the option of taking one. How I would say it really helps. Go do a side quest, go play around a little.
I've also heard of like, I don't know, on Twitter, I've heard of stories where founders, people who start companies, they'll start a company, work on it for like 3 to 5 years, either exit it or shut it down, take a few more months or take a year or so and then start another one.
Yeah.
I think these people anyways don't like to get a job, quote unquote 9-to-5 job. So I think, that category also, I've heard like many stories on that as well.
So true. Again, as a breed, founders, once they have kind of shut down for whatever reason, they got acquired or they shut it down, whatever, what are they going to do next? Either they have a Google sheet. I know founders in Bangalore who floated a Google sheet with all their friends. यार life में कोई problem है लिख दो sheet पे. So they collect problems. Some go travel. Some go read. Some just observe life. Some sit on Twitter and just observe life. And they like, oh, this is a problem worth looking at it. So they need that space of time to play. I think just this time to sit by a window, stare at nothing, have a cup of coffee, and just kind of let ideas play inside your head, maybe use writing as an aid while you're doing this, really helps. You figure it out. So for founders, yes. But here's also the truth, right? A truth we don't talk about, that in our CVs, so many people hide taking breaks.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they'll say, I was consulting, I was working for a non-profit. They will try and hide it out of guilt again, right? Because they're like, there's a lot of shame attached to it. And there's also the kind of interrogation and the line of questioning and the tone of questioning that they go through in interviews, right? Which is not kind, which is not coming from a space of curiosity and understanding what this person in front of me has been about, but really grilling them down and trying to put them in a box. And it's hard. And it's easy to lie.
Even if that break might help that organization he's interviewing for, right? Even if that, like, whatever he did during that time.
For sure.
But still.
I think people who have come back from breaks are the really nice people to work with. Right? There's lightness around them. There's a freshness around them. And there's less anxiety. They have hoping they have come to the job also with the right intention. It's lovely to work with such folks. Versus somebody who's been at it, just been, it's often, again, if you're in a creative space, it's easier to get burnt out. It's easier to not be that curious, that playful, and that this ability to go deep into a problem statement and ability to take a solution and bring it to conclusion. So that's there too. So yeah.
Is there any risk of, like, when you were mentioning that you will sit with a cup of coffee, stare at the sky? Is there any risk that while you do so, you lose all the motivation to go back to work again? Because there is some amount of, like, in some ways that is what life should be about, right? Like, if you look at life, if you remove this, again, obviously we cannot remove the practicality, but if for some reason we would get checks at the end of the month by some entity, the true way to probably live life is just to relax and spend time with your family and, maybe take your dog out for a walk or whatever, go to a cafe and, just gossip with your friends or something like that, right?
To each their own, man. Like, there are people who will find that suffocating.
Okay.
So that's what I'm saying. There are different breeds of humans, and that's the beauty of us, right? So there are people who will hate it from the very core of their being.
Just relaxing.
Yeah, because they're like, what am I doing? And I know folks who were born to be producers, they're born to be creators. They can do that for them.
That is easier.
As long as they have a camera in their hands and they're happy as then, that's where their flow state is. That's where they actually can lose context of time. And that for them, that is sitting,
relaxing,
staring at the sky, right? So that's relaxing. So there are that set of folks too. So I want to say that if you are one of those, don't let it feel that, but predominantly most of us are not in that category.
Yeah.
With the usual 80-20 rule sort of thing. Again, my observation and my biased observation of my bubble in which I live, there are those folks I have, and lovely folks in my friend circle that I get to observe and have that sort of, the founders or creators and artists who can't sit still because that's their way of expression of life. But then a lot of us who need to kind of take a step back. And that's when they really perform best, is having taken a step back. So that's my answer to that. Like, find out, like, just know. And how do you know? By taking a break. Take one.
Can we drill down a little more on, like, we did touch upon this, but like what, so one is, when you do take a break, one is obviously exploration of ideas, maybe networking also be brought up, like, you talk to people, you get some, because when you're in a job, because you're Monday to Friday, generally, broadly speaking, 9 to 5, that the whole day is occupied sitting in an office, right? And even if it's remote, I agree, even if it's remote, but you do have work to do, and you have to finish your task, and it's difficult to kind of schedule things with other people in that context. So when your schedule is, let's say, wide open, you can talk to people, you can explore ideas. Are there other things that we have not spoken about where somebody can do where their day kind of opens up? Like, when you are in 10th, 11th, 12th, you get that 2 month, April, May, those 60 days as free. Such a beautiful time. But so there you have the freedom to do whatever you want. Are there other things that can be explored during that time which may or may not be helpful in your career or in your life going forward?
Absolutely. Like, so two things here, right? One is, luckily we don't work 365 days, right?
Luckily.
So we have so much, you got earned leaves, you have so much leaves that are available to you. You can take mini breaks. And a lot of industries, I'll give you an example, is D2C, right? In India, D2C brands give actual leaves to their employees, and company-wide shutdowns happen after like those Amazon, whatever Freedom Sale and whatever, like Myntra has a sale and all. They have these sale periods where people really compress work. So there is this ebbs and flows and compression and decompression that happens in organizations.
But that's very rare, no other. I mean, broad, generally speaking, like my experience has been, one is I think people are hesitant to take leaves in the first place because manager kya soch, you're doing something wrong. At least that's where I'm coming from. I don't know.
Thank you. You are voicing, you're actually bringing voice and words to our culture. And to some extent, this is an American culture as well, and our Indian culture is also similar, where it leads with scarcity, and hence the only way to do is perform all the time, right? Like that's the sort of antithesis to it. But if there's somebody from Europe listening to this, they'll be like, what the hell are these two guys talking about? Like, this doesn't apply to them. They have long breaks, they life, be it France or be it even like Netherlands, there is a space with which work, and they're still productive, funny enough, right? So it's not the number of hours, it's very cultural. And the two examples you gave, right, like that, what will your manager think, or how you'll be considered a promotion or something, like, that's not the right space, right? So the reason both of us are probably talking about it, and I hope a lot more folks talk about it, is that your promotion depends on your performance, your capability of what you can do in the future, what you've done in the past, and also your ability to lead and ability to kind of lead even your own self, frankly, if you're not a leader with multiple people around you. That's what a promotion is. It's not supposed to be, oh, this guy was here. So this funda that, oh, you must go to school and then you should go to tuition and you don't have any time to play because bloody get serious. You're in your 9th standard, 10th standard, or maybe 6th standard, because 6th standard and you have only 4 years for 10th and you start. So that framework hasn't really done us that good. If you really look at a lot of global studies around it, around educators, and see kids who are outperforming, often they're kids from Nordic spaces and Indians are doing it really well too. But again, often it's constituted as that this is the reason. My thesis is that there's so many of us, and if you just sort of push everybody into a needle, someone who's the winner is going to come out the other side, be it in a spelling bee or somewhere else, and then you will call it, oh. But we are in the right place in the right time, especially in the context of, we're talking about startups and all of the tech space, and obviously so. But that does not mean that that's the way to operate. So I totally don't believe that that's the way to operate. And that's the way to kind of look at your evaluations and your peers. And yeah, I mean, that's not the right space for you in your career, I would say. But yes, you're stuck at that. Acceptance to some extent makes sense. Playing and figuring out how you can kind of move out of it makes sense. Talking about it enough allows you to change the system where you are at as well. My first job was at a non-profit, so there is a little bit of activist and a change maker in me that I truly believe that you can do that. So you don't have to just resign and accept that. And us talking about it hopefully helps, right? So,
for anyone who really wants to take a break, again, you touched on this. Maybe if you can flesh this out a little bit, which is for somebody who does not have the means, and again, I also fall under this category, and many of us do, where they may want to step back a little bit, but cannot afford to. So how can they plan? And this is, I feel, general. Like, how do you explore ideas when you cannot afford like full time? Explore ideas is a strong word, but I mean, how do you explore things, or how do you kind of reflect on things when you cannot afford to do it on a daily basis because you have like a job to do, right? How can they go about doing things? Maybe either planning, or what else can somebody do if they cannot afford to take a break per se?
Okay, let's break it down. Okay, you right now are in a space that you can't afford to take a long break, but you would want to take one. What can you do? Accumulate all the leaves you have. Take those. You have leaves. Take those leaves. Nobody's stopping you to do that. Figure that out. Talk to your managers, talk to your team. Figure that out, that I want to take that. Can't do that. Don't have any leaves, or the team wouldn't allow you to take it. See if you can change your team. Or you can't do that. You can quit. You can... is there some transferable sort of skill that you have which allows you to zone out. And I'll give you examples, right? Like somebody runs a surf club in Andamans. They're looking for a content creator. They're looking for somebody to manage their marketing, and you're fairly proficient at that. And maybe it takes you an hour and a half. Maybe you can club all of it and do it on one day a week. But you can go change of space, change of food, change of people, change of conversations. You're away from a certain, like there's this virus in the air that only talks about AI and productivity and equity in Bangalore, right? There's this just like Delhi has the air pollution that just sits heavy on this. I think Bangalore does that too in some ways, right? So getting out of it, or wherever you are in Bombay or wherever else, getting out of it allows you to that space, right? So I think seeing what you can change. I'll give you an example. You can go back home, take a break and go back home. But you're like, no, that's worse. My parents are going to be like at it, right? Happens, right? I know so many of us.
Yeah.
Who are like, I know friends who don't tell their parents they've been fired or they've quit their jobs because they're like, my boss was one thing. If I tell my parents or my family about it, it's going to be even worse, right? Like there's just the constant scrutiny and the pressure that comes with it. You go stay with a friend. Go to a different city where one of your college friends or buddies is a bro. We give them credit for, and if you are a person who gives, I think life will also kind of give you back. And this is not woo-woo thing. This is something that I have a person who was extremely scared and had a very sort of scared and what do you call constructed mindset, a scarcity mindset as well. And to a person I've come to be now in the last 30 years of working on it. Has really helped me to kind of see that there is another world out there. So asking people, reaching out, taking a small project, like you can, like if you're working on the client side, have the client say, hey, can I take a small project? I'm quitting my company, but I can continue to do this for consulting for you guys, right? So there's so many ways to play around with it. Is what I'm saying is that if you ever think like, hey, and this is not even about this topic, but this is about everything else in life. If you have a problem and you come approaching it and you hit a wall and you're like, oh, this is the only way or there is no way. I think either of these two, when you say this is the only way, the only way is for me to continue doing a job and I can't do anything else, or I can't find a way, there is no way. More likely than not, I would say there's a 99.999%, and these are something I can be very confident about, you're approaching it wrong. It's not like that. It's just the framing, the way you have the mind narrative around that, the way you're approaching it. It's not like that. And I truly believe it.
There are always other options.
There is a way. There has to be a way. This is almost basic anatomy of how the world is designed. I don't know how better to frame it. But if you think there's only one way and that's the only way.
That's like a law of like, you think that's like a law of like universe or something like that where.
I think it's hard for me to articulate that. And I don't mean it like a law of the universe sort of thing, but
in the spirit of things, I don't know.
Yeah. How could it be? How could it be that that's the only way?
That there are only two options.
There's one option. Right? There's no option there is no option or there's one option. There's got to be at least two options, three options. There's got to be at least one more option than wherever you are at. And I think that's what folks kind of forget. And that's the thing, right? I wouldn't say even jobs. I'm going to reframe jobs into repetitive tasks and spaces where you kind of feel constructed. Spaces, not even has to be a job. Allow you, they do that to you. They kind of come down on you saying that, oh, this is the way. This is the only way.
I mean, this is any situation in life where you feel cornered. I mean, it may be a job, may not be a job, but relationships or anything in life. Any situation you're in where you feel cornered and you think there are only two options, but one more, a few more.
So sometimes the world out there has options. Sometimes if that is not there, it's this. Oh, I'm looking at it differently. I think this is the only approach. It's a reframing internally that's needed. That's also, by the way, an option, right? And of course, there's a circumstantial. I truly believe that there are and by the way, let this not be a conversation, right? Here's an invitation. If somebody listening to this thinks that you're stuck, I think I'm fairly easy to reach out on LinkedIn or somewhere else. You'll find a way. Reach out. have a conversation. Better than me, there is, all the AI. Number 2, I'm using this. So we keep account. Is use AI. Have a creative conversation. Talk to a coach, talk to a therapist, talk to somebody, right? Talk to a dear friend who's non-judgmental. You will find out that you are looking at things in a very certain fixed way, and you kind of been thinking about the same way again and again and again. And now you kind of have deepened that thought pattern into, now you kind of feel and it kind of owns you. So it helps.
No, but you mentioned about AI my first time, but that is actually a genuinely very useful use case, right? Like, I mean, if you want to explore ideas, before, like let's assume somebody does not want to reach out to people for whatever reason. Maybe they are hesitant, maybe they don't like to. Ego could be one, or sensitive topics, right? Maybe you just don't want to discuss certain things about the issues that you're having in your relationship with some third person. You may not want to do that. I really feel AI is a very good first pass. I don't know.
Yeah, again, with Starma, caution, right? Like, it's not a human. It's known to delusion. It's known to kind of lead you astray. It's known to agree to everything. And that can be even worse because you're thinking a certain way and they're kind of agreeing to you and not allowing you. So maybe a few prompts that say, hey, don't agree with me at all. Like, give me contrarian views. Convince me how the contrarian views are actually right.
That's fair.
Tell me 20 reasons I'm wrong at the way I'm approaching things, right? Allows you to do that. But yes, I would always prefer a human over any day. And even with the limitedness of another human, there is this bountiful way another human can show up for you. And that's beautiful. So I would still say find one. And again, if ego is a problem, that's a you problem, right? Like, the thing, if you don't have friends, hey, talk to strangers. I think Bangalore has this lovely strangers club where people go and meet up, and it's called like a human book club or something. People go and talk to each other. Go talk, man. Like, I love this one thing about Mumbai, right? You can go sit in a local Mumbai metro, like a local, and you can talk to a stranger. And it's very funny. Like, strangers have told me some really interesting stuff, about their lives. And it's almost a form of self-reflection. I don't have much to say. I'm like, okay, interesting. Good for you. What else can I say? Or something like, I understand. Life can be difficult. It's hard. And it's really like the ability for another person to show up, even as a stranger, for even a short while, is beautiful. So I don't discount for it. And it's very easy to hide behind a screen and an AI and kind of do that. And that's what's also happening. Like, we had bigger bubbles and smaller bubbles, and now it's a bubble of one, and you're kind of individually trapped in one. So,
like, at least for me, being a first pass to either ChatGPT or Claude. Generally ChatGPT, but generally, I don't know. For me, it generally helps. And I've also spoken to a few people where before I talk to them, again, depends. I think, again, context matters on what issues you're talking to people about. I had reached out to a friend, and the first thing he said, did you ChatGPT this before talking to me? I mean, it was a technical financial issue.
But very different use cases, right? Like a technical finance use case is very different than an emotional, vulnerable use case, man. So very different things, right? So I wouldn't use the same tool for these extremely sort of diverse problem statements. And very right. What your friend said is very right? Like, yaar, ye kyun call kiya?
Yeah.
Like, I have a finance problem now. I put it up, try to figure out. I even figure out clauses and laws and everything, and then I send it across. Here's the problem. Here's the solution I've come to till now. Take me a step further. Just validate it. I do that to my CA, to my lawyer. I do that. But this is what we're talking about, something quite different, right? So
makes sense. Wanted to get your thought. Like, when I was prepping for this, one thing I couldn't really box on is I have heard a few cases where people were bored with their jobs and then ended up doing an MBA or doing some masters or some course that, like a year course or, like an executive thing maybe. Yeah. Does that classify as a break? I don't know. Because, I mean, for me, going into a university environment always feels like it's a fantasy land, right? University is a fantasy land at the end of the day. I mean, a lot of the things that like kind of work in university just completely fall apart in the real world. So is that like a 2-year vacation where you relax, or how does that pan out? Is that a break? Is that a non-break? I don't know.
Depends if you take it as one.
Okay.
I'll give you an example. If you're going there with being performative and you have to really excel at it and you're really trying to make the most of the opportunity, which means learning and which means that you really, really care about that opportunity life has given you, and you want to also, you invested money and time and you want to do
a lot of money.
right by it. A lot of money sometimes. Then so this is what I'm giving an example, right? Look, absolutely, yeah, I'll make the most of it, and then it's not really a break, but it could help you reframe nonetheless. The funda was that can you change your environment? Can you change your state that allows you to look at your circumstances differently? Period. In that case, it could be one. Another way to be like, hey, I'm just going to take some random course or something which is not even going to challenge me, frankly. But it's for 1 year. I'm going to pay some random amount, which is not too much also for me, but it gives me the excuse of having a break. Like, I'll give you an example, right? Like, unemployment rate in India, especially in tier 2, tier 3 India, is quite a lot, right? And when you're young, you have zero work experience and you're trying to get out there and you're probably not moving into a city and trying to figure things out. There will come a time, 1 or 2 years or something, that you don't have a job. You're still figuring it out. And family, because and friends will start to say, "Arey, ye to UPSC के लिए तैयारी कर रहा है." Like, they're just is attempting to study for UPSC. What do? You really get some second-hand hand-down books of UPSC and you just carry them around with you, but you're really not studying and you're not really attempting for it. You have not even filled up the exam form or whatever it is. But that's the narrative, right? That's an excuse enough. So if you want to take, if doing an MBA or I won't say MBA is costly, but like finding something cheap, like a 1 year course or something that is a monkey off my back, is what I'm saying. Do it. Whatever it takes. So where I come from is a space of no moral, like no high ground or judgment.
No judgment.
And that's what I'm saying. Like if that makes you happy and content and aligned with your decision and allows you to be in a better space where you were, it's like pre and post, do it. Who's stopping you?
Bank account maybe, but that's not the audience. But okay, bringing it back home. How do you decide when to come back? Like, how do you kind of figure out that, okay, you decided, you made the jump, you took a break, maybe it was 3 months, maybe it was 3 years. Now, when do you decide it's time to, like, when you decide, either that is going to a different job, either that is choosing a different career, either that is whatever the person is intending to do, what does that process look like?
So I journal a lot. I'm not saying by a lot as in quantity wise, but regularly. So I do kind of journal. And what I tend to do is I kind of go back to my journals, right? So if I'm writing today, we are like sitting in June, I go back and read something from Feb, something from Jan with some space. I'll go read that. And it often helps me. That's a great place for me personally.
How does it help you?
So it allows you to kind of look at your own self in a very, so when you're journaling, so imagine you're journaling today, right? After, like, in the evening, you go home and journal. Everything is very true and real, isn't it? That's what you're journaling. Now, the feelings, the emotions, the thoughts, the ideas, the conviction, the lack of conviction probably, and all of those, you're kind of jotting it down. It's so real. It's this real snapshot of now. And then when you go back, like you go to the future and you kind of read it back, something changes. At least for me, it does. I'm like, it allows me to, and you do that enough, it allows you to kind of look at now differently because you're like, okay, this is how I used to feel. So that's one. The other thing is when I keep doing that, it allows me to really have context of where I am heading, like, because long enough break time and things can start to lose. Really, I know folks who've been on breaks, and I was actually talking to some person I'm trying to help get back in a lovely career, has been doing really ace, been working with startups and ended up working with the government and been on a break for a while, almost a year now. And they were in a place that they actually have forgotten, and bits and pieces of what they did have kind of, is kind of getting lost like sand in some ways, if you can say. Like, and they're like, oh my God, did I even do anything? And they have to really jog their memory, and they don't even have access to their work email ID, right? We can then go and see their calendar. And a lot of when you see stuff like, oh, yeah, I did this. Oh, yes, I did this too. Oh, yes, this was a mini project. This was really fun. And there's so much to show. But they're now struggling because it's been a year and they're like, they were not even happy in that job role, which is, again, emotion is a big context to memory. And they don't have that sort of thing. But how do I decide when I want to come back? So I use journaling as a good way to figure out where my emotional state is, where I'm at, and where do I want to head back? Like, where do I want to go?
Sorry, but I was just thinking about when, even though I don't journal, there were periods in my life where, let's say, some periods were very stressful due to work. But when you look at them in the perspective of time, like, I don't know, like what happened 3 years back, like looking back, it doesn't feel that stressful, or it just feels like a vague memory, or like what were you stressed about in the first place, things like that. I don't know. So I think time also has something to do with it, I feel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Time. And it's not just time, right? Journaling also offers you a very straightforward way. It's written words by you at a point of time. Those were your words, right? So it's very real and in front of you. It's not an emotional, I used to feel like that. हाँ तब मैं ऐसा सोचता था. Oh my God, it used to be like that. It's not like that. It's very real. So it allows you for that, right? And a lot of things, almost like a stoic-ish reference here, but like a lot of things are not as serious as we think they are, right? So, but you only do that through practice, and one of the practices is journaling. But again, coming to the point, right? How do I figure out when I want to come back? I figure out my reason why I want to come back. What do I want to do next? What of that job will invoke something within me, right? So one is, I need the money, but that's something for you to take. But I always look at jobs in some way as a stage, one of the stages of life, right? So if you're a parent, you give a lot to your kids, but then they also change you in some ways, right? In beautiful ways. The same thing happens when your parents get old. People who you have always leaned on end up leaning on you, and that changes you fundamentally in how you take decision, how you show up for them. It's a stage. And in the same way, job is a stage. A lot of it is about skills that you will acquire, a lot of skills you have acquired that you will actually use here. But it's also about how it will fundamentally change who you are. I know somebody who's the head of marketing of a very great multinational company, and they chose to leave their job because they were fundamentally unhappy about what they were marketing about. Their entire job was about hiding the true facts of the company and marketing it in a way that the world should perceive it as. Not a great company, does a lot more harm, is traded. But they chose that, oh no, I think I should leave because that's the right thing for us to do. I know a dear friend of mine was again in a multinational company and ended up starting a podcast like this and was talking about something very genuine. And they were told to either leave the company and shut down the podcast, and reactively they shut down the podcast, but within a month they left too. So there are people who do that for the right reasons as well. So find your motivation back in as well.
Journaling is definitely an actionable item that people can do. But I want to probe you more on this, but I do.
No, please do it.
I also do feel like it's very subjective, right? Like, I mean, so what might work for you? I think everybody has their own way of dealing with this. Like, I feel, for some people, journaling might help. I know for some people who make decisions while they go on a walk. They go on a walk and then they figure out, I don't know, they mull over things for like a good 45 minutes and then they come back and they've made a decision. Yeah. I know runners as well. Some people like to go on runs, clear their head, come back. So yeah, maybe it's
talking to a friend, talking to a coach, having a coach for, like, let's say you're like, hey, I think I want to go back. Okay, great. You have made a decision. Fantastic. What next? Oh, you're let's take a step before that. You're at a place you're like, I think I want to go back. Okay. Where are you coming from? Why do you want to go back? What will change this time? What's the role of a job in your life? What is it bringing other than money, right? Like, yes, that's there. And if it's money, then chasing that, okay, this is what I want now out of it, which is not bad. Like, being straightforward and clear with yourself really helps you in the long run, right? And now that you've decided, oh, I want to get a job, you say, okay, what kind of job do I want? What do I want to play around? Do I want to try something new this time? Do I want to go back and double down on the skill I already have? I've been doing marketing for a while. I want to double down on it. I've been doing something else, but I want to try something else, which is aligned to it. Or something new. Absolutely. Please give it a shot. And that's great. Like, I was at a space in life where I let the noise of the world get the better of me. And I thought I could be a product manager. And I went down that journey. But very quickly, I realized that I was in Delulu land. I wasn't happy. It was not aligned to who I am. And I was going on a path which was more, I'm thinking about 3-4 years back when everybody in Bangalore wanted to be a product manager, right? And for me, I thought I somehow reasoned and made myself believe that, oh, that was the right path to go. But I'm glad that I had a budding friend, like I had a friend who was a budding coach, and they gave a lot of investment of their time, and thank you, you know who you are, allowed me to get out of my own way and realize that, oh, I was in an echo chamber and a bubble, and that's not what my career trajectory has to be about. And it really helped me. So I think that's the thing, right? Like, I'm not saying just journal, like it's a methodical thinking path, right? Where you think, and I often feel that you can't, a brain left in a box kind of thing, right? Like you need another brain, you need some stimulation to kind of apply that thinking to for an output to come out. So that's how I'm approaching it.
No, makes sense. Any final advice to people either on the verge of taking a break or, we spoke about this, I want to take a break, can't afford it. Any actionable advice that you think might really serve them from your experiences maybe, yeah.
Want to take a break but can't afford one.
Or can afford to, scared, for whatever reason.
They're very different statements. No, let's unpack them, right? So you want to take a break, yes. But now there are two options here, right? One is you're scared. The other thing is you can't afford one. One is a practicality, other is an emotion. Let's look at it. Practicality. You can't afford one. What can you afford? Can you take some leave? Will that help? No, you want to take a complete off? No problem from work. Then can you lean on family? Can you lean on friends? Can you be patient and just wait 6 months and save for 6 months? Time is relatively short. We often, as long as it is, it's also short. So take a 6-month break, save some money, do a side gig in the meanwhile, take some more money, and you have, see what of your ambitions of a new MacBook or a new phone or something can you cut away or pause for a year. And you can, instead of a MacBook 4, get a MacBook 7 or whatever, M7. It allows you to, so I'm saying you have an option there. You can really chart a way out for yourself. That was if you didn't have money. You have money, but you're scared. It's natural. It's natural to feel scared. What are you really scared of? It's a difficult one, but I think answering that will help. Talking to a few friends or people, do some LinkedIn research and find people who have taken breaks and talking to them. I'm not alone. I'm frankly one in a million people who do this, frankly. So these things should help you figure out that yes, being scared is normal, it's valid, and it's actually the right response. But also, it's a localized response for now, and maybe it's not going to help you take you further. So, yeah.
On that note, thank you so much for taking the time. And I think breaks are not something that are, it's not a hot topic of discussion at all. Whenever you go to a conference or whenever you talk to people, it is rarely the case, if ever, that somebody talks about a break, either career breaks or breaks in general. So thank you for talking about it. I think you gave a lot of actionable advice that people would really help people who want to take this plunge, right? So thank you for that, and thank you for taking the time on a Sunday afternoon. Really appreciate it, Adhar. Thank you so much.